All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Coinist Daily stream here. Gosh, this week we're starting off two later streams in the day, and I know that's brutal for everyone in Europe and in Asia. I do apologize for that. Switching time zones for me is always rough. Not an excuse, though. I will, like I said, I'm going to try to be back at a normal time. I should be back at a normal time tomorrow. I've got to work out in my days at a more normal routine today. Looking at the market, though, a bit of a hiccup, I guess you could say, in terms of the plan or the outlook or how I thought this would play out. I think it's one of those moments where you have to go back to the drawing board. And for me, that means I'll walk through why this most recent, I think maybe 4 or 8 hours ago, or pretty much what happened overnight last night, at least kind of puts a halt, I think, on my expectation for Bitcoin, and why I kind of want to take a step back and say, okay, maybe wait a day or two for the next expansion. Not as eager now to just jump in on every single break of a resistance. Want to kind of see now, for the first time, we've had a 4 hour nearly kind of after a nice 5 or 6% pop. The following 4 hour time period nearly kind of covered that move to the downside. We haven't had that during the entire move up from 9,600 that we started tracking 5 or 6 days ago. Right, and we had a few really nice swings. I had a few really nice swings, and I've talked to quite a few of you guys who also caught that from 9,600. So it's been a nice week or so of, the trend is so strong that it almost feels like you can do no wrong. And maybe that isn't over, but today and what's happened in the past 12 hours at least makes me want to kind of take a step back, reevaluate, and not be so trigger ready or trigger happy, I guess you could say. I'll talk about why. I'll talk about the outlook here for Bitcoin. On the alt side of things, nothing is going to change. And that's just because as I look at Tron, as I look at ADA, as I look at EOS, every single major alt is still showing that it's breaking support even when Bitcoin has a down day. These alts aren't getting any kind of love, any kind of life. And I just really, I struggle to find the scenario still that alts are like ready to outperform. I think that maybe the first sign that alts would be ready to outperform, or at least would make me start watching alts very closely, would be, Bitcoin trailing off or Bitcoin starting to range again, right? And right now, right, we're seeing maybe the first sign of Bitcoin taking a pause. It's not the first sign of, okay, Bitcoin's now ranging or Bitcoin's trending lower so alts can actually outperform. So the one thing that's going to be consistent, and I think I can knock out of the way very quickly and very easily, and the message is going to continue to be consistent, is I'm just not interested in alts. They're doing very poorly. I think the only thing you can do there, as I've said for a week or two, or I don't even know how long, is to hedge. If you're even going to play that game, I know a lot of people don't short alts, and that's fine. Simply avoiding them will really kind of do the exact same thing to your portfolio, right? So that's the only thought on alts. So the focus is going to continue to be on Bitcoin. That's the only reason I'm not covering alts. For people that are like, I wish we could trade some Binance plays. I do too. And that opportunity is going to come. I think 2 weeks ago, we looked at EOS and ADA, which were both nice swings, right? My thought process is, and the way that I've always approached alts is, if majors, right, if ETH and if ADA and EOS and Litecoin and those coins can actually show some life, it does show that risk appetite's increasing. It shows that the environment is nice for alts. And if those can do well, generally that momentum will transfer over to Binance and the mid caps. Until that happens, though, I'm not just going to make the leap into, hunting one or two or three out of the top 100 alts that does well when every single one is doing bad, right? So that's going to be consistent. I just have really nothing else to add there. I wish I did, but there's going to be some time periods or some areas where market environments, I guess you could say, that just don't lend themselves well to alts doing well. And I have to kind of sound like a broken record there. It's not because I don't want to look at alts. I love trading alts. I think my edge is probably larger there than anywhere else in crypto. But while the macro environment doesn't support it, I'm just not going to do it. Right? Let's look at Bitcoin to start it off then. Bitcoin for ever since 9,600, right? Ever since the bottom of this range, ever since we reclaimed the range going into August, end of July, right? It's pretty much been above 9,600. Sure, I want to get long. Above 10.9. Sure, I want to get long. And things have just kind of worked out perfectly. This is the first one where it's thrown a little bit of a wrench in those plans. Last night I talked about, well, you guys know from the stream yesterday as well, my plan was any 4-hour or daily close above this level would be positive for Bitcoin. And as I was watching this play out last night, I updated this in the Discord. I played it live on Twitter as well, right? I was kind of hedging in this area, taking some profit, right? Because it seemed to me like this was kind of our last major resistance before 12.9. Bitcoin hadn't taken a pause from 9,600. It just seemed like momentum was kind of running out, right? So the way that I was playing that, right, I was short on XBT or short on perpetual swap or however you want to think about it. Even if you don't trade futures or don't trade derivatives, you can just think about it as taking profit, right? Not wanting to be so long anymore. And the idea was, if this is where Bitcoin stopped, right, this is where I'd be wrong, right? If Bitcoin continued to move higher, with the expectation that price is probably ready to just drift lower, maybe something like 11.3. That's a dip that's interesting to me. 11K would also be a dip that I find very attractive. Those are previous resistances that we just haven't come back down to retest, right? So that was the thought process going into last night. Late last night, what happened as I wanted to go to bed, but the action was so kind of wild I didn't, right, was we did start to have a slight dip, a few $100s down, and immediately after, right, price just starts to rocket past through this level. And I'm watching on smaller time frames, and this is one of the things that's maybe tough to explain. I'm going to continue to do my best. For 5 or 10 minutes yet in yesterday's stream, I talked about, I use 4-hour and daily closes above levels because it's my default rule set. I found over X amount of iterations that it helps me tune out noise. It helps me move slower. It helps me to have a very concrete set of rules when I'm executing on a trade. There are some certain circumstances, though, and this is going to sound contradictory, like I'm just don't follow rules at a whim, but there are certain circumstances where if there's a really serious volume pop, we're starting to move very aggressively through a level, right? Instead of kind of waiting for that 4-hour close, right? I just got long. And it's tough for me to explain. I'm not going to focus so much on that this stream. I'm going to focus on the Bitcoin outlook. But the only reason I'm covering this is because I thought we were going to have a breakout above 11.8, 11.9. We did for just a few hours, right? We had a nice pop up to 12.3. It seemed like a perfect trade, right? Up $400 in an hour is always good. And then immediately after, prices dumped. So this is the first time, I think, during the entire, and I close, right? I take my 2% loss, and I guess it's a really nice time to be doing this stream. It looks like we are going to get our pullback. This is the first candle. So if you look at the 4-hour, right, the entire move up, any kind of retrace is small. It's really only kind of selling off maybe 1 or 2% of the entire move. Resistances get tapped once and then break through. Resistances get tapped once and break through. What we're seeing now, I'm just going to delete some of these lines. The move above 11.8, right, up to 12.2, 12.3, immediately after this very positive move, we have a 4-hour candle, which pretty much takes back or we lose almost all that ground that we just gained. And that's really the first time we've had such a strong sell reaction. We've had such a strong retracement after a positive move. It's the first time that makes me, like I started the stream with, kind of take a step back and want to be now a little bit more cautious and not just so ready to say, okay, this has to continue. This has to continue. That worked for a week, and it led to 2 monster kind of Bitcoin swings. For right now, I'll take my 2% loss and say, okay, this is the type of action that I think does make me think a pullback is likely. But since now we've kind of gone above the line, gone back up, we're really just kind of toying with this level. I don't have the clearest outlook. It's definitely the first time where it gives me pause. So I'm just going to take a step back from Bitcoin today. I don't really see new opportunity. If I had to have a play or had to have an outlook, based on this kind of being the first time during the entire small uptrend we've had for the past 7 days from 9K up to 12.3, it does make me say that this is the type of action that looks a lot more likely like we'll get a pullback. I tried to find similar action in the past couple swings, and I really can't find anything. I think that the 13 or the 14K top looks similar, but I'm not calling a top here at all, so I don't really want to use that example. What I want to do today is just highlight a couple levels that I do think, if we pull back to, would be interesting. And I focused on these for a little bit yesterday, but I want to spend slightly more time on them today. Bitcoin at 11.8, right? This is acting as resistance. Yes, we did have a pop through, but immediately after we start closing back below, right? I like to use those 4 hours for confirmation. So we've had 3 or 4 hours in a row, closing below for almost the better half of 24 hours, right? If we do pull back, what are a couple levels that have acted as support or where previous resistance is that can be retested. Right? High time frame levels that were previous resistance or previous support often flip, right, when price is back above or below them. The first area that I think is at least interesting as a potential support, and I think this level is maybe a little bit hidden, right, is going to just be kind of this little shelf. This is like 11,400. Right? There are a few times this area has acted as a pivot. You can kind of think about it as really the last time we had a pause before finally moving up to 14K. So for some reason, price is kind of clustering right around this level. It's been a little bit of a pivot. You can also see, I'm just going to draw that across. It's our little pause before 14K. It's also our little kind of bump and run before we move up to 13K for the second time. This I don't think is a high conviction level, but it's kind of a gauge of if price starts dipping, right? Are buyers very eager to step in, or are they a little bit scared and kind of want to let things drift lower? That's kind of the first level that I'm watching or thinking about just based on that. Why is that so thick? There we go. Right, and that's going to be like 11.4. Right, so as we start dipping, and we're watching this live, if we start dipping, this is really the first level I want to see a reaction, but I'm not too excited to buy it. Right, as I said, I'm just taking kind of a step back. If we get down to this 11K 10.9, this is kind of the first level that really excites me. Right, and if we take a step back, I'm going to get rid of a lot of this in the range, right, from 13K down to 96. This is like the cheapest Bitcoin's been in a month, is like the most expensive it's been. This 10.9, I think, is probably the most important pivot. Right? This major resistance, it's been a major support several times. It was the double top up here at 10.9 before we sold off to new lows. It was our last resistance and breakthrough that led to kind of an explosive move. This 10.9 or 11K, I think, is probably the most important pivot. It's the one that I would say is also the most obvious. It stands out on every single higher time frame, 4 hour and daily. Right? Previous resistance that I would be looking at to potentially become support. And this is really the first level, if we do start dropping, that I'm actually kind of excited to be buying at. Right, so 11.4 is like a gauge. I want to see, are buyers eager to step in? Right, is this a short-lived dip before we continue higher? 11.4 is kind of how I'm gauging the health of the market. The first level that I would actually be eager to be, submitting some orders at, right? Looking to get long here, I'm wrong below here, and looking to run it higher, is this 10.9 11K. I think you guys can see how I get that. Right? Previous resistance, and not just a random resistance picked off in the chart, is that double top, right? The most important pivot, I think, in this range, area 10.9, looking for it to become support. Right? So that's kind of the first level if we do drift lower. 11.4 is a nice gauge of the health. 10.9, 11 is probably that dip that I think is really enticing. I also know a lot of people are going to be looking to buy that, right? So maybe this is a factor of, Bitcoin's kind of faking everyone out. Whatever it is, we've toyed with this level a few times in both directions. I've been wrong 1 or 2% in both directions. I'm going to take a step back, reevaluate, see if buyers step in. This is an area that I would actually step in. But for now, right, I think you can see how this kind of action is the first time since 9600 that things at least look a little bit different. I still think everything's constructive on a high time frame. I still really like Bitcoin, medium, long term. But just in terms of a weekly and a day-to-day basis, I do have to take a pause after something like that happens. Want to kind of see where we go. I don't really kind of just want to be, pedal down every single day looking and hunting for that trade. I think you can kind of get caught out that way. Right? So the consistent narrative or the consistent analysis, the view that has not changed at all, is Tron, ADA, EOS, every single one of these alts is still getting punished, and I don't see the environment that they start to do well. On the Bitcoin side of things have changed, I think. I don't think the trend has changed, right? We're still very clearly in an uptrend. We've made no new lower lows, no new lower highs, right? We've literally gone straight vertical, and we're only down 3 or 4%. It's just this type of action makes me want to take a pause and think, okay, does the market at least need to reset for a little bit? Maybe kind of clear people who were massively over leveraged, right? On Kraken for the past 24 hours, we've been seeing very large sells, which could be, kind of a game that some large players are playing to liquidate people. Whatever it may be, I want to just let this reset. It's the first time we've seen this action, the entire move up. It would be great to be able to buy Bitcoin lower. And if that doesn't happen and we do start continuing, right, fine. Then I'll kind of reevaluate tomorrow or later tonight or late tomorrow, whatever it is. If we start closing back above here, if things look healthy again, we have good volume again, sure. I think there's going to be plenty of time to get back on the train or plenty of more swings, even if I miss this one. For right now, I kind of want to take a step back, reevaluate, let the market reset. It looks like that's what it's telling or kind of, trying to think of the word. I'm blanking. It looks like that's what the market is kind of signaling here. So once again, 10, 9, 11, I think that's probably the strongest, most obvious resistance support flip that I see. 11.4 is a nice gauge. Right now, this kind of action at least makes me slightly worried for the very short-term outlook. On the alt side of things, nothing has changed here, guys. These things continue to sell off, even when Bitcoin takes a pause. I just don't see, I'm not going to fire out trade ideas there if they're not going to make me money or make you money. Right? That's all I got, guys. Have a good day. Once again, if you're watching this and it's too late there, or you're watching this tomorrow morning, I do apologize. We'll be back at a normal time. The time zone switch was just brutal for me, but not an excuse. I'll be back. Welcome everyone who's a new subscriber, new to the team. This month has been really fun up until really the past 24 hours. The Bitcoin trend has been just amazing. And I think if you can focus on the higher time frame stuff, avoid just getting kind of caught out and hoping for the next big move, right? Bitcoin has proven that the moves will come. There's going to be, if you miss the 9,600 swing, there's going to be a 10-1 swing. If you miss the 10-9 swing, there's going to be, another swing. There are going to be opportunities there. I think alts, it really pays to be kind of avoiding. But for Bitcoin, it's going to give that opportunity to catch the next swing. I don't want to be kind of, in a position 24/7. I think if I can look back on my entire trading career and say, when did I make the biggest mistake? It was when, you try to string every single day and say, I'm very bullish today, or I'm very bearish today. Right? There's going to be days where you kind of have to, I think, reset, take a step back, not be in a position 24/7, and wait for the next swing. Right? That's all I got today, guys. Have a good, I don't even know what day it is. Have a good Tuesday. We'll see you guys tomorrow, normal time. Whatever it takes, I'll have this out at the normal time, maybe even earlier. That's all I got. Have a good Tuesday. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.